A question for you. How many truly great managers have you had? Not good people, not smart people, not people who knew the business inside and out, actual managers, the kind that made you better and the kind that made work feel possible on your hardest days. For most people, the answer is surprisingly small, and that's interesting because leadership affects almost everything: engagement, retention, performance, culture. Yet somehow we still treat management like a skill people are magically going to figure out after we hand them the title. Today, I want to talk about the leadership gap nobody seems willing to talk about. Welcome back to Worth the Work. I'm Courtney Hughes Bohennick. Let's get into it. I've spent most of my career watching organizations reward people for being excellent individual contributors. The top salesperson becomes sales manager. The top engineer becomes a chief engineer. The highest performing property manager starts leading a team and sometimes even a market. And on paper, it makes perfect sense. They're successful. They know how to do this work, and they've earned that opportunity. But the problem is that leadership isn't the same job, not even close. One job is about doing, and the other job is about helping people do. One job is about your performance, and the other is about creating the conditions for someone else's performance. And those are very different skills. Yet organizations everywhere continue to make the same assumption. If they're great at the work, they'll be great at leading people who do the work. Sometimes that's true, and a lot of times it isn't. And when it isn't, everyone feels it: the employee, the team, the manager, the organization, everyone. Here's the thing. I don't think most managers are bad leaders. I think most managers are underprepared leaders, and there's a difference. A few years ago, I was talking with a newly promoted manager who looked at me and said, flat out, "I think everyone assumes I actually know what I'm doing." And honestly, that might be the most honest thing a new leader has ever said to me, because I've sat across from hundreds of managers over the years. And what I usually find is that it isn't someone who doesn't care. It's someone who's overwhelmed, someone trying to navigate a performance issue they've never dealt with before, someone trying to figure out how to give difficult feedback without destroying the working relationship, someone trying to motivate 5 completely different people who all need different things to thrive, someone who quietly wondering whether they're doing any of it right. We hand people a title, and then we hand them responsibility for everyone else's development, their engagement, career experience, and livelihood. And we act surprised when they're feeling overwhelmed. Imagine promoting someone to pilot and then teaching them how to fly the plane after takeoff. That's essentially how many organizations are approaching leadership. Over 16 years in people and culture, I've worked with hundreds of leaders. And the interesting thing is that the best ones don't always look similar to each other. Some are extroverts, some barely speak in meetings. Some are incredibly strategic, and some are just unbelievably steady. Some command a room, and others quietly earn trust over time. But they all seem to understand something really important: that the job stopped being about just them a long time ago. They're curious, not because curiosity is a leadership buzzword, because they genuinely don't assume that they have all the answers. They ask questions, they seek feedback, they keep learning. They're consistent, and I think consistency is one of the most underrated leadership traits there are out there. People don't need perfect leaders. They need predictable ones. Trust isn't built through charisma. It's built through repetition, doing what you said you would do, showing up the way you said you would show up, and being the same person on Tuesday that you were on Monday. They understand that leadership is a service, not in a soft way, not in a never hold people accountable kind of way, because the best leaders I know are often incredibly accountable, but they understand their job is no longer to be the star player. Their job is to create an environment where other people can succeed. It's a completely different mindset, and honestly, it's part of the leadership we talk about the least. I think we're entering a period where leadership matters more than it has in a really long time. People are tired. Organizations are changing. Teams are distributed. We're leaner than we've ever been. Expectations are shifting, and AI is reshaping work almost faster than we could keep up with. But what's interesting to me is that we're spending an enormous amount of time teaching technology how to work more like humans. Meanwhile, we're still promoting humans into leadership roles and hoping they just figure out feedback, coaching, accountability, and trust all on their own. That's a strange investment strategy if you think about it. Because at the end of the day, most employees don't experience culture through strategy decks. They experience it through their manager. They're asking questions like, do I trust this person? Will they tell me the truth? Do they care about my professional growth? Do they create clarity or confusion? Can I count on them? Those aren't perks questions, they're leadership questions. And increasingly, they determine whether people stay, engage, and do their best work. So let's end where we always will. What is actually worth the work? For me, leadership development is every single time. Because every great manager I've ever had changed my experience at work, not the company, the manager. They made hard days easier. They challenged me. They helped me see things in myself that I couldn't see yet. And the opposite is true too. We've all seen what happens when leadership goes wrong. We've all experienced the ripple effects. That's why leadership development matters. Because when you invest in a leader, you're rarely impacting just one person. You're impacting every single person who works for them and every person who eventually works for those people. The ripple effects are enormous. Leadership is not an org chart issue. It's a human one. And that's worth taking seriously. That's it for today's episode. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Who was the best manager you've ever had and what made them different? Find me on LinkedIn and tell me. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of the people you lead, and keep asking yourself what is actually worth the work. I'm Courtney Hughes Bohennick. See you soon.